Abraham Lincoln once wrote, "I have never studied the art of paying compliments to women, but I must say that if all that has been said by poets and orators since the creation of the world in praise of women were applied to the women of America, it would not do them justice for their conduct in this war." He, of course, was speaking of the role of women in the Great Civil War, which rocked our nation, killed over 600,000 Americans, and ultimately freed over 4 million slaves. In other words, he saw quite clearly that women were fighters. The likes of Susan B. Anthony, Florence Nightingale, and Clara Barton were forged in this era of tremendous upheaval, and yes, liberty. But still, 152 years later, it is not uncommon to hear a disparaging comment that someone fights like a girl. It would not take much to convince a thinking person that fighting like a girl is better applied to the kinds of battles that exist in the everyday lives of women today as they fight for equal pay and equal protection under the law. Justice Scalia says, "Certainly, the Constitution does not require discrimination on the basis of sex. The only issue is whether it prohibits it. It doesn't." I hope by the end of my speech, the phrase "fighting like a girl" will bring you a sense of passion about bringing equality to women in the United States of America once and for all. A woman named Maxine Lamp started her teaching career in the 70s fighting like a girl. She was a focused, determined, and hard-working woman. The school district refused to give her head of household pay that men received, even though she was the sole earner while her husband was in graduate school. Anyone can see, 40 years later, how ridiculous such a justification for determining pay, as was their later refusal to negotiate a higher salary for her work in administration because they told her, "You don't need as much pay because your husband's a professor and you have enough money." This didn't sit very well with her, of course. She is now fighting the gender pay gap with AAUW in Iowa. A Harvard labor economist named Claudia Golden has crunched the numbers and eliminated variables like hours, age, race, and education to determine the true gender pay gap. It varies by industry, but for illustration, a female doctor earns 71% of what her male counterpart earns. It is past time we took a stand against injustice. We need to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. Now, it's not going to be easy to pass this amendment, but that's okay, because we'll fight like a girl using good logic, battlefield strategy, and explosive communication skills. There are 2 ways to pass an amendment, and we know that one of those ways has never worked. Eliminate that option. We can start from scratch by using the other method of getting a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress and then 3/4 of the state legislatures ratifying. Or, and here's the spoiler, we can use the efficient path to victory. It's called the 3-state strategy, which will require a congressional resolution eliminating the ratification deadline of the 1972 Equal Rights Amendment Bill. That way, the 35 states that have already ratified would still be in effect. Now all we need is 3 additional states so that we can win this fight. Like a girl, the smart way. You may be wondering how you and I can help to get this amendment passed. We must unite and fight. Imagine a world where women didn't have to fight just to receive the same pay as men. Pay and respect and equal protection under the law should not be determined by a person's gender. This fight was begun with women's suffrage by our Civil War forebears and is continued with women like Maxine Lamp and Ellie Seltzer. We can raise awareness, you and I, with the continued guidance of AAUW. If we can do that, use the 3-state strategy, and stand up, we can get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. Because we do, indeed, know how to fight like girls.
Sorry.